One of the biggest lies people believe after 50 is that isolation is just a part of getting older. Well, I don't believe that. And today, I want to talk about it on Coffee and Convo. Welcome, everybody. I am Jay. This is another Coffee and Convo Life After 50. And today, I want to talk about loneliness, isolation. After 50, if you don't have people in your life, or you're starting to distance people from your life, or let's just say allowing people even to distance themselves from your life, you're setting it up to be lonely. And I don't believe we're meant to be alone. That's just my personal opinion. Got to get a sip of coffee to get this one going. Now, in fairness, I'm currently going to be 52 years of age and I'm not alone. I have my family still intact in my house. I got two kids, one already in college, one getting ready to go to college. She graduates here in a couple weeks. I got a senior graduating next year. I got one going in to be a freshman in high school. So, I have some time of being surrounded by my loved ones. And I'm married. So where does my idea of not wanting to be alone or feel like, it's like, well, you're coming from a place where you used to have everything intact. Yes, but there was a time where I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt distance from everybody. I know what that feels like. I know that's not the way I'm supposed to feel. I know that's not the way I'm supposed to live my life. So with that said, hear me out. At age 38, my first marriage fell apart. And it took me a couple of years to truly get over the whole idea of family being disintegrated. Now, I was fortunate to come out of the smoke clear with my children intact. My daughter lived with me and my son was mine from a previous relationship. So I had my kids in my life and that was helpful. However, man was never meant to be alone. Now, again, if you're a believer, then you know that God created Eve so Adam wouldn't be alone. Man and woman have been together since the beginning of time. And as you get older, maybe the idea changes or the strategy changes or the way that you approach a relationship after 50 and beyond will look a lot different. In some cases, the stats show that it's probably easier. After 50, it's probably easier for you to find somebody more like-minded than you than not. But I remember sitting in my room and contemplating the idea of why I feel so empty. And it was loneliness. And I knew I had to put myself back out there. I didn't know where to start. At this point, I'm in early 40s, 40, 41 years of age. And I'm like, where do I start, And I had to start the same way that I'm approaching my 50s with the mindset, right? Focusing on mental health, focusing on spiritual health, and again, always focusing on my physical health. Well, that led me back to finding a church where I could practice a lot of the spiritual stuff. And that's where I actually met my wife. And I wasn't there looking for a wife. I was just trying to get myself stronger and more open so I could potentially go find that wife. Funny how life works, right? She had a similar journey. She was just coming out of a divorce and, it's been a few years for her. And even though it wasn't a focal point of what we were thinking about in our lives, like targeting it and going after it, it's something that naturally happened because I truly believe that's the natural progression of man and women. They want companionship. Now, so many people have struggled and so many people have gotten hurt and so many people have given up on this whole idea of what a relationship is. And I understand that. But here's where certain things come into play. As you get older, a relationship is a lot less about a life you're building and it becomes more about a life you're enjoying. And that's going to look different for everybody. And I don't think it's fair for me to dive too much into the weeds on that, on what that should look like, because it will literally be different for everybody. Everybody's chemical dynamics, hormones, all that are vary. And it wouldn't be fair for me to even attempt. But one of the other things that I noticed, and I hear this a lot, and I'm going to speak about self once again and keep it about my situation, but my mom is elderly now, and my stepdad is elderly now. They're alone. They're lonely, even together, because they feel like, well, the kids, my grandkids, all the kids are getting older. They're doing their own thing. That's going to be my reality someday, right? My kids are going to go and start families. They got their careers. They're already in college or approaching college, and their lives already seem hectic and busy. And my mom sometimes gets upset with me because, I don't always pick up the phone and call maybe when I should, or maybe don't have her over for just lunch unless it's like a Mother's Day or Easter or a holiday, right? And I always try to tell my mom, hey, you're right. I need to do better. However, I am a busy man, and I would love for you to make that call too. Don't say, well, like you say, you're busy. I don't want to bother you. There's this idea that you're bothering me is not going to be relevant because I am busy. And it's not that I don't think of you. It's just, being the man of the house, being the father of the home, that's a huge responsibility to take upon. So I do take it seriously, and I do feel like I need to be present here first and foremost. But yes, you're my mom. You're the reason I exist. You've given me so much. So yes, this is the part of when you get older, it's that protective parent mode where you're just like, oh, I know they're busy. Well, when they have time. And my message and my thought process, and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't try to live the rest of my life out this way, is we have to be intentional on relationships. You've heard me talk about, avoiding trends. You've heard me talk about putting mentors in your life, putting people and surrounding yourself around community. We're stronger in community. That's why I personally believe in the church gatherings on Sunday. I mean, it's like-minded people. I have some different thoughts too about how Sunday church could be, but if you create the right community for yourself inside a spiritual realm where you could be honest, and that's where mentors have shown me that so much, right? Someone I could sit down with, share a cup of coffee with, build a relationship with, and be completely transparent and honest about my struggles and not just act like everything's okay. You can create your circle, and your circle can be tight-knit. And that generally looks like husband, wife, kids. That's usually your tight circle, right? And maybe other family members sprinkled in, cousins, brothers, sisters, things like that. We're doing ourselves an injustice if we don't learn to widen that circle, to add more pieces in there, right? Add mentors, add things that mean something to you and the people that you share those things with. Make them part of your circle. Be very intentional, because life alone is not life. We were meant to commune together. We were meant to even just share a simple cup of coffee together. I don't know who will live longer, me or my wife. Both of us have underlying issues. Who knows? It's not up to us to decide. It's up to us on how we take care of our certain situations. But I believe, and I know that we've had this conversation, my wife and I, and we both agree, like, if anything happens to me or anything happens to you, promise me you're not going to live your life alone. And again, it doesn't mean you have to romantically fall in love again, but you just have to be able to have people in your life. And if that's a significant other, it becomes a new male in her life, a new husband even. I trust in her that she'll pick a solid, good man. And it doesn't mean that she won't continue to love me. It just means that she'll continue to be loved here on this earth and not be alone. And I also find it very important that if you have children, that you make it just as intentional for you to keep in contact with them as it is for them to keep in contact with you. And how does that look? Don't give up on being the host. Keep yourself healthy. Keep yourself mentally strong. Host holiday parties. Have them over for dinners on a regular basis. I have a cousin. His wife's his wife's mother, to this day, as far as I know, still has family dinners or late lunches, if you will, on Sundays. I would love to implement that here at my home. That one day a week, that regardless of what happens, as busy as my kids can be, as busy as I can get with all the little side projects and hustles I got going on, that we know that this day, at this time, if God willing, that we would be able to sit at a table, break bread, have conversation, and just connect. That's with the smaller part of my circle. It's very key because, that's the circle that I created. That's the circle that I made. So it's important to me. But only to limit myself to that would be doing an injustice. That's where the lie comes in. That's where, I just did a video on trends, right? That's where trends could set in, and the whole idea of just when you're older, it's just a natural. I personally believe, my personal opinion is we allow that to happen in our lives, right? My stepfather, he's diligent. He makes time to go to a senior center, play pool, have his coffee, and just talk. He's a talker, boy. He's one of those ones that you sit down with him, he's going to stick you there for a good 30, 45 minutes nonstop, just talking about everything, talking about his life. A lot to learn from that too, by the way. Amazing journey that man's had. But he's very intentional about keeping himself busy and keeping himself connected to others. So I see that from the outside. Now, I've seen a handful and quite a few videos of people that say they want to be alone, that they prefer to be alone. I can't talk for them. All I could say is when I listen to their videos, they talk about friends, they talk about neighbors, they talk about, just going into town and having, talking to people randomly. To me, that's your inner person, just my opinion, that's your inner person pointing you in direction of community, pointing you in the direction of having these people in your life so you could actually have a place where you're not alone. Again, loneliness doesn't have to be, is different than saying, I don't want a wife when I'm older. If something happens, I don't want to move on. It's completely different than saying, but you know what? I have a group of men that I meet on a weekly basis, talk to some on a daily basis. We break bread together. We have coffee and conversation together. And, I am at least not alone. There's people that are going to know if I'm not around or I don't call that maybe something's wrong and is going to reach out to me. That is just food for thought today on Coffee and Convo. And I hope that you're enjoying and understanding what I'm trying to say and, and take food for thought for yourself and look at your situation and be like, man, what does my circle look like? How big can I make it? How can I make it better? And if you want to join the conversation, AKA hit that subscribe button, please do. Join the conversation. But more importantly, I'm looking for more response. I'm looking for more conversation in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your feelings. Whether you agree to disagree, it don't matter. We're all on this earth. We're all on our own path. We're all on our own journey. Just share it. Create conversation. You're not alone here. So go ahead and stay in touch. Give me some topics to talk about. This has been another Coffee and Convo, Life After 50. I'm Jay, and I'll see you on the next video.